Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. I'm Alex Whiteley, and we are coming from one of the most beautiful places I think I've ever recorded. And I've recorded in some crazy good places. And I'm outside the Royal Hill in Edgerely, and I am sat with Colonel Mark Cuthbert-Brown CBE, and you are the Vice Lord-Lieutenant.
I am indeed.
What a mouthful that was. I think I said that to you on an email. How are you? You good?
I'm very good, thank you. Yeah, good to meet you, Alex.
It's good to meet you too. Now, I'd love to find out more about you, because we've just been talking now. You've got a fascinating story. So can we talk about the Colonel part of your background and what that is all about, obviously?
Oh, gosh, I wasn't anticipating that question. I grew up as the child of a generation that all served during the Second World War. Every one of my parents, siblings, and indeed both my parents served in uniform during the war. And I joined the army in the 70s, partly because of the 3-day week, and I sort of felt that there wasn't much alternative, and I said that to my mother, and she said, like hell you will, I think were her words. But also watching really quite horrific stories developing in Northern Ireland, and I thought, my parents did something for the country, and I ought to. And so I started at Sandhurst, and initially with a 3-year plan, and very quickly it expired, and I'd already been to Northern Ireland and Berlin and enjoyed myself, and the system said, oh, your service is coming to an end, you ought to think about where you're going to next, and these are the countries in which we don't really want you to work. And I thought this was a better alternative, and so I signed for a regular commission, and ultimately did 35 years before, or along the way, stumbling on Shropshire and liking the people here, and then looking my eyes up around the hills and recognising the countryside, and it's beautiful. There's a beautiful town in Shrewsbury,
It really is.
And I thought this is a great place to settle, and here I am.
I mean, I've got to say, my drive up here was very extraordinary, because I haven't been down this neck of the woods since I was probably about 17. And the last time I came, we're sat outside, guys, so you're going to hear cars and stuff, but that's nice. It's fine. And the birds tweeting, that's the most important thing. I was in the cadets from when I was about 13 right up until I was 18 3/4, or whatever it was you were allowed to be in. That I hit that mark. And we used to spend a lot of time in the Ministry of Defence, the camp here in Nestcliff. And driving around here, I saw those white huts, and I got so emotional. I was like, oh my God, I spent so much time here when I was younger, and I haven't been here since. I mean, have you ever had that experience where you haven't been somewhere since you were a kid, and you've seen it, and it brings back all this emotion? It's crazy. So thank you for bringing me out here.
I'm delighted.
You were talking to me just about the wholehearted nature of Shropshire folk, and that kind of what drew you here. I mean, that's kind of why I do what I do with the Biscuit, really. I mean, I kind of moved to Shrewsbury in late 2017, and I fell hard in love with the town, and that's why I do this show, to sort of learn about Shrewsbury, learn about the people of Shrewsbury, and give something back while I do it. Because
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
We're very lucky.
It's beautiful. So the Vice Lord-Lieutenant, what is the role of the Lord-Lieutenant? And then we'll talk about your role as well.
Well, the Lord Lieutenant's role is to represent the Queen within the ceremonial county of Shropshire, so that includes the area managed by Shropshire Council and also the area managed by Telford and Wrekin Council. Mm-hmm. But as the Queen's representative, she's here and tries to support people, recognise those who are doing well, comforting those who are not doing quite so well. And it's up to her, Mrs. Turner, Anna Turner, whether or not she appoints a Vice Lord-Lieutenant. She's allowed to appoint, I think, one Deputy Lieutenant per 35,000 in the county. And from amongst the deputies, if she wishes, she can appoint a Vice Lord-Lieutenant. Her predecessor, Sir Algy Heber-Percy, appointed me in 2017, simply because I think he liked my approach. I've never asked him why he asked me to take on the job, and he retired a couple of years ago, and Anna took over and reappointed me. So I serve as the vice, and in the event that something happened that required the Lord Lieutenant to do something whilst he or she were indisposed or out of the country, I would step in.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, big responsibility, though, isn't it? To land on your doorstep all of a sudden, I'm going on holiday. Here you go, Mark, is what I need you to do, this, and this, yeah?
We discuss it, and if she's going away, I know of her dates and roughly where she's going. And no, it all sort of works. And so far, it's ticked over very nicely indeed. And we form, with all the deputies, a very good team, in my opinion. I think it works pretty well.
I, of course, came across you because the amazing Dean Harris, who's just the High Sheriff, and I gotta say, a lot of people that have worked with her have had high remarks about her and what she did, and what she still continues to do after she stepped away from her role as well, which is fantastic. Where has this role taken you? What have you been your proudest moments as the Vice Lord-Lieutenant?
Oh, crikey. That's a difficult one. I've represented the Lord Lieutenant on a few occasions, but most often it's a local event in which sort of the community wants a dignitary and a representative of the Crown, and I've deputised. Proudest moment actually precedes my time, I think, as even being a deputy lieutenant, and that was helping to organise. Excuse me, that's a dog leaping onto my lap.
Dogs are welcome on the Biscuit.
two spaniels on the bench alongside me now. No, the proudest moment I think was stumbling into the plans for Her Majesty's visit to the county in 2012, and the then Vice Lord Lieutenant, a good friend of mine, Colonel Edmund Thewles, stumbled on the fact that I had just left the army and was looking for something to do, and forgive me, there's a phone going.
It's fine.
And lo and behold, it is indeed the Lord Lieutenant.
Okay, cool.
We'll accept it if that's all right.
Yeah, of course, please do. Okay, we're back. We took the phone call there from the... That's crazy, isn't it? We were talking about the Lord Lieutenant, and just as if she knew we were talking about her, phone call goes and we have a conversation with her. That's fantastic. So what were we talking about? You did just tell me.
You'd asked me about my proudest moment as the Vice Lord Lieutenant,
that's right, yeah.
And I think, and indeed I talked about it just there with Anna, and the proudest moment I've got in my connection with the lieutenancy was assisting in the visit of the Queen to celebrate her Jubilee at RE of Cosford in 2012.
Amazing.
I stumbled into that episode. I had a little bit of free time, and Colonel Edmund Thewles, my predecessor as Vice Lord Lieutenant, recognised that he needed some help. He kept talking about it as running logistics, and I always used to fight shy of saying I could run logistics, but I've done a fair bit of that in my life. And I found myself over the next week or two, it was 1 day per week, and then it stepped up to 2 days per week, and then it was 3 days per week, and before I knew it, I was trying to find an 8th day in the week. And it was a hugely busy series of weeks and months. But we ended up with 35,000 children and many more in the way of adults, somewhere over 40,000 people altogether, marching down the runway at Cosford, endeavouring to give an eyes right to the Queen and to the Duke of Edinburgh. One or two of the children had to be pointed out, sort of, oh, there's the Queen, and then they would divert from the marching route and try to climb onto the Queen's lap. And it was a wonderful event, at the end of which Edmund Thewles was saying farewell to the Duke of Edinburgh, who turned around to thank him for the visit, and he said, "It's not quite the trooping of the colour, is it, Edmund?" And that, I think, is about as good a compliment as you get from the Duke of Edinburgh as you would have got. And I remember meeting the Duke once again some months later, and he spotted the name Shropshire in connection with my purpose on that occasion, and he then dived deeply into that visit and his memories of it. He had clearly remembered the day and enjoyed it, and for me that was a hugely proud moment that I had contributed to something that had worked so well in the memory of him.
I imagine something of that order would be like a logistical nightmare. Everything's got to work, and
it was quite a challenge
to pull it off. I mean, that's quite. Yeah, I can see why you'd think fondly of that. Sorry, I'm going to move my keys. I'm digging into the loudest things in the world. I'm going to rip out of my pocket on a podcast. So you're involved deeply. So the Vice Lord Lieutenant on a weekly basis, is it a case of keeping a profile of Shropshire, making sure people understand the good parts of, being a PR representative, I guess.
To an extent, that's true of the lieutenancy as a whole, and it's certainly something that the Lord Lieutenant is personally engaged in. I find myself doing quite a lot in support of that effort. And I look after, for example, I chair the panel within the county for the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service. And I find myself dealing with a lot of correspondence. So a lot of it's office-based and email-based, communicating with people who have won or might win or might wish to apply for the scheme. And I find myself doing a great deal with other deputies and some volunteers, including Dean Harris, who's joined our panel relatively recently and is already, in typical Dean fashion, energetically committing herself to it. And it's enormous fun, and it's very humbling as well, because it enables me to meet people around the county that otherwise I would not meet, and to see volunteers doing good things for the community in an extraordinary range of activities.
Yeah, I mean, this place is rich with people just out there, just great community good deeds, I mean, absolutely. Last week I got to meet Casper, who's the street allotment guy, he's the back of the Monkmore pub, a bit of disused land, and he's created a community allotment. These great things that you get to go out and see, I just love it. It's so good. When we spoke, we had a meeting about this a couple of weeks ago. We spoke about the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service. You're deeply involved with that, is that right?
Indeed, as I just mentioned. It's yes. I chair the panel, and there's not a week goes by when I haven't had some business, and some weeks it's several days' work, and some stages of the year, the end of last year, partly because of the COVID pandemic, I found myself carrying a heavier load than normal, and it was pretty much sort of 6 hours a day for most days of the week. So it was fairly intensive at certain times of the year.
Yeah, it was. We covered a lot of charities and things that were having to adapt during the pandemic, because obviously people couldn't go out to do fundraisers, and they couldn't raise money in the old traditional way of putting up a tent in some festival somewhere and be like, "Give us money," can't stand in the town square and do these great things. But how was that for you during the pandemic, trying to find out these shining stars that do great things?
The challenge we had was that. The nomination process runs with a deadline every September, when any member of the community can nominate a charity or charitable cause for an award. I say any member can nominate. Those who are members or working within the charity cannot nominate themselves. But those who've been beneficiaries of such a cause can nominate. So they can say what a wonderful thing I have received from the activity of these people. And there are some limitations. Animal welfare charities are excluded. It's got to be principally volunteer activity, and in particular volunteer-led. It's not to say that some cannot have some of their work conducting overseas or benefiting overseas, but it's got to be a local charity led by volunteers, mostly working with volunteers in order to do good for the community in a local context.
Is this just charities, or is there a C.I.C?
C.I.Cs are eligible. Anything, frankly, that is essentially volunteer and charitable, apart from those that I've just mentioned, is eligible. So it could be a group of charitable volunteers who aren't actually registered as a charity, so they don't go through the audit process, but they conduct work that is positive. And one such comes to mind. The Shropshire War Memorial Association, which is a very small group of people, and it's Clive Blakeway is the team leader. They won an award 3 years ago, I think it was. It's a handful of people who promote the maintenance and assist in the maintenance of war memorials, sometimes amending the details because a soldier has been found to have been excluded, accidentally omitted from the engraving of a stone, or maybe they're expanding the focus of a stone that was laid after the First World War, and they want to include post-First World War, or maybe Second World War, or even more recent conflicts. And Clive and his team will get involved in the scrutiny of the case, and in the engagement of engravers and all of that sort of work to provide positive memories and lasting tribute to those who've lost their lives.
What a beautiful thing to do.
And they're not a registered charity, nor are they a C.I.C. It's simply a small group of volunteers.
And I'm starting to see. I've been a C.I.C. The Biscuit has since the beginning. No, it was the end of last year. We haven't done anything with it yet. We haven't started taking money in. There's space to be sponsored, but it's not my biggest priority. My biggest priority is highlighting some of the shows that we do. And I'm doing a 24-hour live podcast in September, and I'm trying to get. It's going to be crazy. We're going to do 12 hours of the Shrewsbury Biscuit and 12 hours of You Suck, which is the transatlantic podcast network I've got. And we're looking for donations for the auctions. We're going to do some auctions and raise some money for Lincoln Davis. It's going to be quite cool. And trying to get things from big places. We wrote to a couple of like theme parks and zoos and things like that, just for tickets, just to see what we can get. And a lot of them come back and they're like, well, you're not a registered charity. And I'm like, I know, but we're doing it for charity. You kind of fall in the cracks that way. Yes. It's not easy.
Oh, indeed. And it's understandable that they've got some sort of due diligence process, and they want to check that the cause
Tom, Dick, or Harry could be like,
Exactly right. And as we know, there are some Tom, Dicks, and Harry that are out there doing just that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good question. Actually, it leads us on to how do you find the people that there's got to be? Is there a vetting process for charities to make sure they're kosher?
There is indeed. The nomination form, generally, people will submit a nomination online. There's a qavs.gov.uk, I think it is, we could check that, website. And the nomination form is really quite straightforward. The team with which I work is very adept at helping completion of these nomination forms, because it's important that one gets good, solid evidence in there about the good that's being done and the hours that are being worked and the nature of the work. And that ought to be elucidated properly within the nomination form. Once the deadline has been passed, in typically the middle of September, the panel in London, the governing body for the QAVS scheme, led by Sir Martin Lewis, will report back to us and say, we've had these nominations and they are eligible, and they've gone through that check of is it led by volunteers or not, or does that appear to be the case in the nomination form, in terms of its numbers, its makeup, its role, and they will say whether or not it's eligible. And in the event that it is eligible, we are then asked, the Lieutenancy, to conduct a scrutiny. And so we go through that due diligence check. So we'll look to see the accounts. Is there an insurance policy in place? Is it in fact doing what it says it does in the nomination form? Is it led by a volunteer rather than by a professional? And so on. And so between probably the first or second week of October, when we're told which groups have been nominated, some of whom we've never heard about, and we get a list in, and we then get a copy of the nomination form. We review the supporting letters, of which there must be 2, and we go out and conduct visits. And that was one of the challenges we had last year with the pandemic, of course, because the visits were much more difficult. We actually did a lot more work remotely, but nonetheless, we did it in such a way that I was confident we were reporting facts rather than...
Did that create more noise for you? More work for you?
It was very busy indeed, yes. That's really the reason why my October, November, December, and even into January this year was very hard work. Yes.
And you can't exactly be like, sorry, I can't get to the office today.
Well, it wasn't a question of the office, but it was my computer in my study at home.
Yeah. I had a similar problem. We were stuck in a place where the Wi-Fi wasn't great, and we were having to operate via Zoom to record our interviews and stuff. It was, it was definitely strengthening period. I gotta say, very robust after doing that. How do you keep on top of everything? Because obviously there's something new. There's some new scheme or some new initiative every year. There's got to be a couple.
Yes.
And you've got to keep on top of it all. Some drop out, some come near.
Well, that's absolutely true. And we do our utmost to promote the scheme. And as a county, I'm delighted to say, I'm very proud to say, that Shropshire scores very highly on a per capita basis with the rest of the country. We're always in the top half dozen, and often in the top 2 or 3 counties in terms of numbers, other than the big cities, in terms of winners, certainly in the per capita listing. But we we're always looking out for new good causes. So through the pandemic, we have used a bit of video conferencing through a community scheme to give briefings to potential candidates and to potential nominators. And historically, we've gone out to village halls and we've presented a little bit of a lecture, an hour or two on this is what the scheme is all about, and trying to generate a bit of enthusiasm for it.
Good.
And
good.
I think mostly it has worked. But,
Yeah.
I'm delighted to be talking to you because we might have a few more found.
Yes, and this is the beauty of what I do. We make relationships with people, for example, like Dean Harris, Shropshire festivals, like the people that can hook us up with other people, and this is what we want to do. When we talk about the Queen's Award for voluntary service, what is it? What do you win?
What do you win? Two elements. In fact, three in many respects. The first is a cause for celebration, to which the Lord-Lieutenant will normally go, and she will meet the volunteers and congratulate them on the work they've done. So that's, in some sense, is the best bit, because it's exciting and entertaining and fun for those who are able to participate. But at that event, the Lord Lieutenant will hand across two items, two awards to the charity. Excuse me, that's my little spaniel. One of which is a crystal trophy engraved with the logo of the Queen's Award, and the second is a certificate signed by Her Majesty. And those can then be taken home by the group leaders, usually to their office, wherever it is that they centre their operation. And they're then permitted to use the logo on their website and their publicity. And so in many respects, that last little bit, which seems to be an intangible, permission to use the logo, permission to use the label, is an immensely positive attribute. And you talked about earlier on the sort of trying to distinguish a good cause from the any Tom,
Yes,
Dick and
of
Harry.
course, yeah.
There are quite a few of those who have won, and one that comes to mind is the Shrewsbury and Newport Canal Trust.
Mm-hmm.
They've been able to show, using the logo and the award, the merits of their organisation. And sometimes they've subsequently had grants of £10,000 or £20,000 from other organisations. So there is a cash benefit for some of the, I won't say all, but when you're using the logo wisely and you're doing good work and you're continuing with that good work,
It's a sign of quality.
it's a sign of quality, absolutely. It's quality assurance.
Fantastic. And you talk about past winners. Are there any that spring to mind that you're extremely proud of that you'd like to mention?
Oh, well, I'm proud of all of them.
Of course.
And the spectrum is very wide. I've mentioned the Canal Trust. Those are people who are of all abilities. So they've got people with reduced mobility running their website and their media programme. But then they've got other folk, including children in a controlled environment, so they are safe, properly managed by people who are accredited. But they're digging out canal banks in order to restore the route that was created to support the Industrial Revolution. Mm-hmm. So physical hard work in the case of that particular good cause, aiming ultimately to improve the route by which boats could navigate through Shropshire. But equally,
restoring
a heritage, acknowledging that heritage, teaching people about it, but equally opening up a walking route along the towpath or cycling route for those. So the benefit is absolutely huge. Another that comes to mind is one of the local good causes here, the Knockin and Kennelly Cricket Club. Well, we've got a lot of cricket clubs in Shropshire. We've got a lot of cricket clubs across the country. What makes that particular club worthy of an award from the Queen? And it's this: not only do they play cricket, but they coach youngsters. They introduce youngsters to team games and to working together and to conducting sport as a team. And I remember going along to the scrutiny, the assessment before that award, and one of the people says, we take in youngsters, and some of them are only 5 or 6, but we take in young people of all abilities. And then the chap said, Oh, and thinking about it, we take in some too of no ability whatsoever, but we just give them a sense of fun and sense of spirit. We try to develop them. And I think that description will have struck a chord in the assessment team in London, that it's not just those who can, but they're supporting those who can't. And they just don't distinguish between the two. They help and coach to the best of each one's ability.
The very fact that they recognise that as something very important is because, a lot of people don't, and I think that's great. I forgot those low flying helicopters around here as well. I remember from when I was a kid.
Well, that's Nestcliff, isn't it? That's
course,
military helicopters from Shrewsbury, all training.
I remember trying to shout battle commands when they were flying over. It's not easy. It was a 15-year-old kid trying to find his voice.
The best air crew in the world, that lot.
Yeah, I mean, they pretty much try to take our berets off and then come over. They're flying that low. This is all very fascinating. So what have you got for us this year? What's the competition been like this year?
Well, we had a few runners, and I'm delighted to say that we had 4 winners, which is a good score by any year, by any reckoning. One of them is the Red House over at Albrighton, the Albrighton Village Trust, doing remarkable things, not just before the pandemic, but through the pandemic. So volunteers picking up medication for people who couldn't otherwise get to the dispensary, delivering food to ensure that single elderly folk have been able to get their nutrition, and otherwise they might not have been able to do it.
Oh, nice.
And but it's just a really good local charity delivering local good for the community. We've got the Bright Star Boxing Academy, again using sport, using physical fitness, again with a mixture of abilities, but through the pandemic, when they had to close down, respect the safety factors about breath and touch and all the rest of it, they managed to go online and continue to encourage the improvement of fitness and team spirit. And whilst boxing might not be overtly something about team spirit, but there's a camaraderie, there is social enthusiasm, social interaction in that activity.
Of course, yeah.
And so the Bright Star Boxing Academy, led by a chap called Joe Lockley in Telford, has done wonderful things there, and they're properly recognised.
I might get in touch with them. Sounds great.
Oh, they're certainly worth an interview. The Shrewsbury Food Hub is another winner.
I love these guys. They've been on my show. I've been to the Food Hub to take part and I recorded a vlog and helped out. And I said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll be back by to help out and volunteer." And I haven't had time, and I feel so guilty about that. But they are fantastic.
Well, I know that they will look forward to another visit. But and I forget the detailed figures, but I went through the assessment forms in the autumn last year, and the simple volume of food that they move and transport and store is remarkable.
Yes.
And again, they are serving a community that otherwise might not have the
setting a
sustenance
trend
needs.
across the country as well. There's a lot of other food hubs that
Absolutely.
are looking at,
But the great challenge with us for the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service is making sure that we identify those that really are the best and are worthy of the award. There are many, many people who are worthy of commendation,
Yes.
And I take my hat off to every one of them. But to get across the line with some distinct metrics that say why this particular cause is special. And for that, I have to commend the folk of the Shrewsbury Food Hub. Absolutely remarkable people.
Yes. Yeah.
And then finally, our 4th winner this year is the Shrewsbury Drapers Company, which is a long-established, centuries-old organisation, providing, using voluntary resources, housing for disadvantaged people, many of whom are elderly, and it's again a remarkable charity and worth a visit, actually.
I've put exclamation marks by all of these because I definitely want to. I think this is what we could do. I think every year, maybe just to help the cause, and just even if like 40, 50 people listen to a podcast, they're learning about these new charities and they might actually have some input to it. So maybe everybody that's been read out today, I might reach out today when I get home, maybe tomorrow actually. I've got a busy day, and see if we can get you on the show, speak to these amazing charities. That could be one of the rewards. You get to come on the Shrewsbury Biscuit.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, looking back through previous years, the range of good causes is extraordinary. The Newport Agricultural Show last year, one of last year's winners, not just running an agricultural show, and of course that's been impacted by the pandemic, but managing rural land for the benefit of the community throughout the year. And another one was the Friends of Telford Town Park, people sorting out the gardens and creating a really worthy attraction in people who don't know where Telford is, don't know what Telford is, to actually stumble across the fact that there is a large town park, and it's very welcoming indeed, largely down to volunteer activity with just a little bit of council support, but and I wouldn't wish to diminish that, but nonetheless substantially volunteer-led in what this organisation does.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, I've spent many years there as a kid, so just to hear that there's a lot of voluntary work that goes on to make that, fantastic. Well, I think this award is great because a lot of people that put together charities and volunteer for these great schemes, they don't do it for an award. No. They do it. There's no. It's all selfless, right? So for someone to go, actually, do you know what? You deserve something.
Yes.
And I'm going to decide for you because you're not going to stand up and be like, I want an award, because that's not what people do. This is awesome. I think it's fantastic. So yeah. What's the challenges for you? What's the hardest thing? Is it, I guess, choosing a winner? Is that hard?
Well, it's not for me to choose the winner. All of the nominations that come to us, some of whom, of course, we are not aware of until London suddenly tells us that one of your organisations has been nominated, and it comes as a surprise to us. It's always good to go out and find the volunteers who've made it work, but one then has to tease out the information, to present evidence, to make sure that metrics actually stand up, and to make sure there are metrics in the evidence that goes to London. It's no good just saying that an organisation is unique, because that rings alarm bells. If it's unique, there's only one. And as soon as an assessor in London reads that word, they'll say, I can prove otherwise. And they'll go out of their way to do just that. And as soon as they've done it, they will then say, well, actually, what are the flaws in the rest of the evidence? So it's a word that I'll never use in the nomination forms when I see them, or I'd advise against using them in nomination forms. If I see it myself, I'll challenge it. But I'll use it as a cue to look for evidence in order to build up the case if I can. And ultimately, there are occasions when, in our local assessment, we might actually have to say, terribly sorry, but this nomination doesn't quite stack up and we don't want to advance it.
Yeah.
I can't actually remember doing it, but it's a consideration that we go through every single time when we're discussing an assessment.
I mean, when it comes to charities, sometimes unique is a good thing. And the one I think of is PEGS. PEGS is a support charity, and it's basically offers a mediatorship for domestic abuse, but it's for parents that struggle with domestic abuse from their kids. It's like flips it on its head.
Oh, really?
And this was one thing that people never really thought of. They were like, oh, actually, that's not a bad point. Now, what's happened with PEGS is there's lots of people around the country interested in what's actually happening, and sometimes unique is good, but when they start a trend and, like you said, so this is unique, but lots of people are learning from it, that is what's important, isn't it?
Yeah,
so,
quite.
And you mentioned the people in London, and that's a really important point as well, because it's been highlighted to me this year that London and the rest of the UK are two very different planets. They exist completely separately. Yes. Because something that happens in London is kind of,
You're absolutely right. Yeah. I remember when I first served as a soldier in Copthorne Barracks, I was commuting to the Salisbury area every weekend on a motorcycle. And during that time, there was a report published in national media, and it divided Britain into two parts. It was London and the rest. And
doesn't surprise me.
Their map showed a line from the Wash to Bristol and down to the Channel. So everything south of that is London and Greater London. Everything north of that is the rest. And I thought to myself, I cross that line every week, twice. And I couldn't actually say where that line is on the map as I travel down the M5 or down one of the other routes towards Oxford and further south. But I was able to distinguish a difference in the way in which the traffic functioned. And people south of that line tended not to give way at junctions. They tended not to wave people on. Got a little MG midget going past there. That's
Nice,
nice.
yeah. That's what
People north of that line had a wee bit more courtesy, and it was part of the thought process that I went through, having already stumbled on Shropshire and loving Shropshire folk generally. But I thought, actually, there are other parts in the north that are probably or in the relative north that are very nice. But yeah, London is a big place.
You do notice it when you walk around London. People got their heads down, they're A to B as quick as they can. You walk through somewhere like Shrewsbury, they're walking over Greyfriars Bridge, and they're looking around, they're taking pictures. How's it going? Good morning.
And they're routinely talking to people. You greet a stranger with good morning, good afternoon, or just a wave, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, especially when it comes to what I do with podcasts, it's hard to stand out when you're not in London. You're not there with the core of what's going on in this media. And my friend Anne McGinley was speaking to the person, her name, I don't want to mention her name, but she runs Spotify for the whole of the UK. So she's like the executive at Spotify. And he mentioned me. And he mentioned what I do, and she was alarmed. She was like, he does what? A community-based podcast, and it's outside of London. It's doing really well. Okay, so she's gone, ding, I need to speak to Alex Whiteley, and I'm like, I'm going to be speaking to who now? What? Why? And that's because you can stand out, and it's very easy to do that in Shropshire because, like you said, we've got I'm not saying that Cheshire doesn't have it, or up north they're very welcoming, but it says something when you can stand out, and that's the point, isn't it?
Yes, indeed.
There was a point there I was kind of building up to. What do you like to do to relax then when you're not thinking about this? What is your thing? What do you like to do to...
a little bit of old cars. I've got a couple of old cars in my shed at home, one of which, in fact, I drove last weekend for a wedding. She's 90 years old this year, a 1931 Daimler.
Wow.
Big old vehicle that she is, but enormous fun. Takes a little bit of managing. So that's one of the hobbies. Just enjoying the countryside, working dogs,
Nice.
bit of reading. I try to read a bit more and tend to pick up books and put them down to one side, and I'm distracted by something else.
I need to read more. I do need to read more, and it's the same with. I enjoy listening to a good podcast or a good book or something, but I am so busy making podcasts that I can't.
You can't listen to them. I understand that.
Today's been crazy.
Yes.
Tomorrow we're going to be doing the open studio sessions where we're going to set up at Petty Glue, which is the new wine bar up at the top of the market hall,
right.
And we're going to speak to 4 or 5 people. The mic's open. Come and sit down if you want to speak to me.
Fantastic.
So that's what we're going to do.
Well, there are plenty of people around us here at the Royal Hill. You could try that now as well.
I would love to do that. I mean, this setup is so universal. I've got tables and stuff. We can literally set up in a field if we wanted to. So I'd love to do something like that. And Dilwyn from Sabrina Boat, he offered me. They've got a little pontoons, little boat thing they can take out. He's offered me that as a studio as well. So what's the? So you guys have chosen the winners. Is there going to be an award ceremony soon then for these?
We have yet to plan it. I mean, the date of our recording, we've actually we're before the public announcement, so it's only after the 2nd of June that we will be communicating a little bit more strongly with those. The 4 groups do know, their leadership know already that they've won, but we will start thinking about how we conduct an award ceremony. Last year, because of the pandemic, we constructed what might have been part of the Shropshire Virtual Show, but ultimately we which was, of course, a great success in its own right.
I was there.
But we had 5 winners last year, and we gathered them all in to the Cavalier Centre in Much Wenlock, and we had used the horse riding centre to provide a socially distant, mostly masked presentation in which we were able to spread out and congratulate all 5.
Fantastic.
And that was unusual because we normally go to the winners, and it's very much focused on the volunteers of the winners, of the one winning volunteer team that we're with at the time. On this particular occasion, we had 5 volunteer groups, and so each heard a little bit about the others, and it spread good word actually. It was a fun evening, and I'm eternally grateful to the organisers of that event at the Cavalier Centre, which itself does wonderful work.
I love it there. Fantastic. We were at the Shropshire Virtual Show. We were the hosts there. We were on the screen, and I was on the stage. It's so embarrassing. I love Anna, who planned that, and the Cavalier Centre, of course. But it's also one of the most embarrassing moments ever. I was on stage, so we were like bringing on the bands and what have you, and I closed off the show with Thank you very much. This has been the Shrewsbury Virtual Show. It wasn't, of course, it was the Shropshire Virtual Show. But I went out with the Shrewsbury Virtual Show. I didn't realise till I saw the footage back, and I was like, oh my God, what an idiot. What an idiot.
Well, if it's any comfort, we had a flag made up some years ago, and it was actually for the Queen's visit we talked about earlier on in 2012. We had a banner created to celebrate the Queen's Award, and somehow, inadvertently, that was produced with the word Shrewsbury rather than Shropshire.
Well, somebody asked me why my logo has got the Shropshire flag on it. I said, well, is Shrewsbury in Shropshire?
Yeah.
Of course it is. Yeah. So we're technically not in Shrewsbury. It's got an SY postcode, but this isn't Shrewsbury. I don't know how that works, but it's kind of true.
We're not very far from Wales.
No, and so we like to get out and about. This is a prime example of where what we're doing here affects the whole of the county. And I want to say thank you for coming on my show, and I'd love to invite you on again.
I'm delighted. I'm delighted to do this one, and delighted to come again if you wish. Yes.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. I'll tell you what would be great is if maybe, possibly, we could invite you, maybe the Lord Lieutenant, to join us on our 24-hour podcast.
Yeah, good plan.
That might be quite nice, actually.
Yes.
Because it's going to be a worldwide event, international. It's going to be live, which is daunting, but it's going to be very much relaxed like this. And yes, that's a good way to segue into telling you guys about this event that we're going to be doing. On the 29th of September at 9 a.m, I'm going to go live. We're going to be situated at the Shrewsbury Town Community Reach Hub.
Yes.
So thank you guys for letting us use that venue. We're going to be there for 24 hours. We're going to go live. We're not going to stop until 9 a.m. on the 30th of September, which coincides with International Podcast Day. The guys over at International Podcast Day in LA love what we're doing. They're going to be there. They're going to come on our show. We are speaking to one of the fight. We've got so many great acts confirmed already. One of them is the best face painter on the planet. Rachel Roll, she's going to be there. We've got so much going on, but what we need from you guys is we're going to start taking sponsorships. So if you want to sponsor an hour for that show, we've got 24 to fill. The price is a minimum of £50 donation, and we will put your logo on the screen, and we'll be like, this hour is brought to you by such and such. So please get in touch with me, and you can get in touch with me by the website, which is the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast.co.uk. And there is a form there where you can fill in to get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. There's been people that have been offering sponsorship already, so get in there. Is there anything you would like to plug? Is there anything that you'd like to tell people about?
Just got to say how much I've enjoyed this last, however many number of minutes it is, an hour or whatever it is. And no, it's really good to meet you, and wish you the best of luck. And
thank you very much.
I've put the 29th of September in my diary.
Yes, I will. We'll talk about it afterwards. I might actually have that point, actually. We've done this a bit earlier than I expected. I've got an hour to burn, so we're good. Thank you very much, guys, and we will catch you. I forgot to mention as well, our website is made by Web Orchard. Make sure if you need a website, go to Web Orchard. I got distracted then. So just as we were about to order food on the back of that podcast from Mark, I was like, let's order some food. He said, you should really speak to Kelly from the Royal Hill. So we have. There's a microphone here for you. Sit right in front of it.
Yes.
So the Royal Hill. I've just been alerted to the fact that you started this during. You became.
Yeah, on the 1st of July we took over. So we were in lockdown, and then we came out of lockdown on the 4th of July. And then it was straight into it. It was into unknown territory, but we got through it. With local support, really helped us through it.
It's one of the most beautiful places you could put a pub ever. It really is quite beautiful. But you've been here for many years, right? Before you became the proprietor.
Yeah, I started off washing up when I was like 14, many years ago. And then now. So
you did. Wow, that's amazing. So you've really worked your way up to become.
Yeah, definitely. I remember my first shift in the sink, piles of washing up and just, thinking, what am I doing here?
So what is it about this place that's sort of kept you here then? What's so special about this place?
I mean, this place is certainly special, and it's like a secret as well, but my family are locals anyway, but I just like the countryside and everything. It's a real nice place.
I was blown away driving in here. I was just telling Mark, as soon as you come around the corner. I haven't driven around here since I was a kid, and I don't even remember all of this. But I came around the corner, saw those hills. I was like, oh,
yeah.
this is amazing. And you must get a lot of people that are out travelling, ramblers, people out on their bikes.
Yeah, because we're on a cycle route as well, and then obviously we've got the hills around us. But people just come here and they just, they drive around a corner and it's just like, wow. And, people are happy that, and then we try and do good food, good beer, We are just, we're just a pub.
So what's the ratio of locals to sort of people that are out and about?
I mean, we do have a massive local crowd here, to be fair. I don't know, maybe 50-50.
Do you get MOD based help?
Yeah, we get a lot of people from the army camp as well. They're very good. And the helicopters are always going around as well, which is great. And they support us as well very much.
I see a good pub over there. We'll go there after we've had our flight. I can just imagine. So coming out of lockdown, it must have been so difficult for you. I mean, I've spoken to so many businesses that were really badly affected by lockdown. But this is your moment to shine. You'd waited years for this. Well, that must have been really horrible for you, right?
Yeah, but we've got to look at the positives. Like, we are a very outdoorsy pub. We've got a great, beer garden and stuff, and we can see a vast majority of, people outside, and people like to be outside because they're by the river, the countryside.
Yeah,
so we are quite fortunate, really. We were one of the lucky ones, I would say, of having such a good beer garden and views.
Yeah, I mean, the guys, if you're listening to this, you can't see obviously what we're talking about right now. If you've never been here before, the tables are very socially distanced outside. They run along. And what's down the steps there? Is there more tables and chairs?
Yeah, there's more. There's more tables down there.
And the River Severn.
And then the River Severn, yes.
Is that a problem for you, the River Severn? Does it get that high here?
It does get high. It gets to that first post there on the road. So the road's all flooded. But it's beautiful, but sometimes it can be your enemy as well. But it gives us good views, and the canoeists and stuff. But sometimes with it flooding, it does cause us a bit of stress. But
I've never been more conscious about rainfall since I moved to Shrewsbury. I tell you, whenever it rains, I'm like, oh no. I'm thinking about the river levels, and I've spoken to so many people that were just devastated during those floods before the pandemic that still haven't recovered. And then, of course, there was the pandemic. It's amazing. So, you've had a unique step into this because you've seen it all. We've progressed through this. So you've not. Some people will buy a business or become a proprietor of a business, and they won't know what it's like to work their way up. But you do. Do you think that helps you a lot?
I think it does, and you can see every aspect of each person's job. I started in the kitchen, I trained into the kitchen, I trained to be the chef, so I understand what the chef's going through on a stressful Saturday night, and I understand the bar staff as well going through, but I think with the pandemic, I think it's gave us challenges that now if it came again, it wouldn't seem such a big challenge. So we've gone through the hardest time, and I think the future could be bright,
Yeah, I think
positive.
so too. I said at the beginning of it's probably my fault all of this that keeps reoccurring, by the way, because I said last year, 2021 is going to be the party year. Everybody's going to be going, and there'll be festivals, everybody will be out there, and this thing keeps plaguing us. And there's rumours of lockdown 3, whether it's going to happen or not. But I feel like we're kind of, I don't know if it's a good thing, but we're kind of used to it now, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's kind of something that we're just used to. And
I think there's a lot to be learned about the pandemic as well. We've learned stuff, and even in our business, like waitress service, it's so much more convenient for us. Before it was just, we didn't do waitress service, but now we do because of the social distancing. And it kind of works better. The flow of the service is so much better. It's more of a calm, organised, pub, if that makes sense. Whereas before you had canoers coming in, you had your walkers, your bikers, but now everyone's understanding, to sit down and stay at your seat. It works better for us.
And I feel like you take this for granted less. I mean, I went for a meal with the family. I went to the Waterbridge Arms up in Wem, and I was just like, this is nice, just to be out with the family and have good food. And that's the first time we've been out. I mean, I went outside. I went to see my mum and crew, and we sat outside, and it was raining, and then it wasn't raining, then it was windy. We were outside, but to actually sit in a nice pub and have a great meal, like I was like, I'm never going to take this for granted again, and I hope I don't.
Yeah, definitely. And we see families, you know, there's only tables of 6, but you see families, they really appreciate each other, I think, because they haven't seen each other for so long. So, you know, they meet up with the grandparents and the kids, you know, they're enjoying their time and appreciating it. And I think that, you know, that's another thing to be learnt by the pandemic, isn't it?
Well, you certainly got high regards from Mark anyway. You enjoy this place?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I bought a cottage because it was a mile closer than my previous dwelling because the pub's there.
Well, I've loved being here and seeing how much people have enjoyed it. Everybody's out enjoying the sun. These 5 minutes of summer that we're going to be having, apparently. It's really nice. Thank you for talking to me. I know you're nervous to do this, but where can people find you on social media, things like that?
Yeah, so we're on social media. We've got our website, which is theroyalhill.co.uk, and we have everything. Yeah, we're quite up to date on Facebook. We're not amazing at social media, but we've learnt again how to adjust to social media, and on
Instagram too. I'll just tag you in a post on Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram. I'm not sure how to use it, but we're on it. That's
well, you should, because this is beautiful, and Instagram's all about looking at beautiful things. So, thank you for talking to me today.
Thank you very much.
All the best of luck.
Thank
you very much. Cheers.